28 months down, yeah, the industry's been bruised, but we're not here to fold, we're here to refuse. While others pause, we built the plays, now we're leading the charge in a brand new phase. You feel that tension, that's the pressure to grow. Hiring's messy, turnovers high and budgets low, but we don't panic, we adapt. We sharpen the edge and reload the map. This is the staffing playbook, strategy on tap. Steven brings the grit, G-Money brings the slap. Forget the fluff, forget the spin. We give you plays that actually win. From the break room floor to the boardroom seat, we've walked the walk, now we bring the heat. CDLs, forklifts, line leads, and execs. We place the best and fix the wrecks. Insight, hustle, leadership, bold. No safe takes, just the truth told cold. Wanna scale your team, wanna close that gap. We got the data, the story, and the roadmap. So turn it up, lock it in. This is more than a podcast, it's a win. This is the staffing playbook. Let's get to work, it starts right now.
Welcome back to the Staffing Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Farrell, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Genevieve Bourgeois.
Also known as G-Money.
G-Money, yep. It's been a nickname for at least 10 years. Okay, and I was actually given it by Charles Johnson, who was a player for the Panthers in North Carolina. Yeah.
Well, you know, the reason it's G-Money in the new podcast intro is because AI, text to voice, cannot pronounce your name properly. It keeps saying Genevieve. So, you know, with a little rap, I thought, hey, that made sense. G-Money.
I'm here for the slaps. Every time I watch that, I just giggle.
Yeah, that's pretty
Tina,
funny.
what were your thoughts?
I actually love it. And I had about 5 different TikTok opportunities pop up into my head with the groove. Like, oh, they're onto something.
Well, Tina, welcome to the podcast. You are a returning guest. We are excited to have you. This is going to be a great episode. We're going to be talking about helping clients attract the right talent. And for those of you that don't know Tina, I'll give her a brief introduction. Tina Hazlett, she's the founder and CEO of Spectrum Recruiting Solutions right here in Utah. And she's been a talent acquisition veteran since 2001. Tina's transformed a year-long family sabbatical in a Winnebago into the 2018 founding of Spectrum, now renowned for building diverse, high-caliber teams in the aerospace, defense, energy, and manufacturing spaces. She's been honored as one of Utah's businesses' 30 women to watch. I can validate that. And she leads a girl power puzzle and championships. And off duty, Tina, you're coaching softball and chasing mountain trails, which is something I love to do as well. So did I miss anything?
No, but to clarify, I'm not coaching softball. My husband does. I just make sure they're fed and hydrated and, you know, more that the mom role in that scenario.
That's probably
you don't want me
more
coaching
important.
anybody in a sport.
That's honestly, that's still a lot. That's a whole, I have no idea how you get all that done.
Well, that's
Impressive.
why my eyes are like about 24 hours a day, but it's fun. And I know it won't last forever. So I'm trying to take advantage of, especially like the softball mom world. We only have a couple more years to live it up and then that'll be gone and I'll miss it.
Yeah, my kids are getting to that age where they're going to be playing in sports. And now I'm just like, just have to cross off my evenings now for the next few years, just taking them to their games.
Next few decades.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, decades. And every time I'm with my nieces or my nephews, I'm just like, all right. And then it's like, oh, hey, no, we have dinner planned or something. No. It's mostly all events. And it's all games. It's all tournaments. And I'm just like, I love it. And one of them, my hot dodo for JoJo. Okay, he's the oldest. He's 18. All right. He's 6'4". He towers over me.
Ooh.
All right. But
aren't
so
you like 4'3"?
Essentially, compared to him, but like when he started coaching like the little leagues, I was like, oh, like when he was like 15 or 16, it was the cutest thing. And I was
It really is the best. Like I never thought I'd be a softball or dance mom, and I've enjoyed both.
I made the mistake of getting my son a dirt bike when he was 8. He's 10 now. He's so good at that thing. He's jumping curbs, doing wheelies, and it's just, I don't know what I'm getting myself into. He's gonna, that's an expensive sport, number one, but also dangerous.
Yeah, good luck, Dad.
Yeah, thank you.
No advice here. Good luck.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a proud dad moment or like, ooh.
I know you seem terrified.
I hope you have good insurance. You know what I mean? That was my first thought. I was like, insurance. You will
Mine too,
absolutely
actually.
meet that deductible. Okay. See,
Well-
Tina and I, we're on the same page.
You are. Well, I want to get into this. This is the Staffing Playbook. We've got an awesome guest here talking about helping clients attract the right talent. Tina, before Genevieve jumps into the questions, tell us a little bit about the roles that you support, because it's really going to tie, these roles I think that you support will tie into our audience, and that you'll be, we're going to help you with the right questions, give our audience the playbook, play-by-play to help their clients attract the right talent. So if you could, just for a quick minute, tell us about some of the roles that you and your team support.
Yeah, you bet. So anything professional level within the manufacturing space is what we target. So think electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, a lot in manufacturing and operations. We even get into HR and accounting. Anything that a professional operations plant needs to function, we can help them with. We don't typically hit the production level or hourly positions, though we can. That's not our specialty. So professional positions within the engineering and manufacturing space.
That's fantastic. Yeah, we focus on our side here at Your Employment Solutions on the light industrial temp to hire. We do some professional placements, but we leave the rest to the experts like yourself. And so this topic's really going to hit home for those of you that are in the light industrial space and beyond. But you'll know exactly what we're talking about today when it comes to helping your clients attract the right talent, retain the right talent, which in turn will help you as an agency or a recruiter trying to find them the right talent. So this is going to be a lot of fun today. Dig in, take some notes. We're gonna take this thing to the next level. So Genevieve, I know you're dying to ask Tina here some questions, because Genevieve has ran a 360 desk, and so I wanted her to really pick your brain today.
I love it.
Yeah, 360 desk. Why do you think I decided to go to marketing? Okay, that was pretty stressful. But it was a big challenge. Okay, like as you can tell, and so I know what it's like having to try to go and find the right talent. But in your mind, what does that actually mean, and how should companies be defining it for themselves?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the right talent is simply defined as having the skill set to do the job that they're seeking to fill. But the right talent for a particular company is a whole different beast, right? So you're finding the skill set that you need, but you also have to find that mindset that works in your environment, and acknowledging that not everybody will work in your environment. So imagine if you can get the right talent to do the job, but that also elevates the energy and connects, and just, it doesn't feel like work so much day to day. That's how you know you have the right talent for you.
Okay, and so like just to kind of follow up on that, also kind of ensuring that's a good cultural fit for the candidate as well and the company.
Oh,
And is that
absolutely.
okay? And so is that something, especially when you are placing a candidate or you're trying to place them, right? Is that something that you need to really make sure that you are noting?
Yes. And one thing that we do a little bit differently is that we make sure we go have a really in-depth conversation with the companies before we even take on a search, because how are we going to find the best match if we can't speak to what their environment's like or what their culture is like? And, it gives us a little bit of the upper hand when you're trying to educate and find that perfect person. And it's nice to meet the people within their team that they consider like the ideal employee. And that's one way that they can start to really identify, okay, what is our culture? What is our environment? Our core values, even. That's a common exercise, is to really look at your top performers or people that you consider just exceptional employees and what traits and qualities do they bring to the table? And then doubling down on those in the future as you're talent mapping the positions that you're seeking.
I love that answer. Stephen?
Yeah, I've got so many notes here. Obviously, you've got to have the skill set for the job, but it can't be an exact match, right? 80% or better is usually what I'm looking for. But drilling in at the candidate level, seeing if they have the right mindset, can they elevate the energy, bring that to the organization, elevate, not only be a cultural fit, but the goal would be to help elevate that culture. But the in-depth conversation with the client, I think that is often missed because we're so busy. We've got a lot going on. It's like, oh yeah, I've recruited for this position a million times. I see a lot of firms that make that mistake because every company's unique. And to go out there, talk to the ideal employee, the top performers, see what their values are, and try to align that with your recruits. That takes a lot of time and effort and can slow down the process, especially if the client's like, yeah, I needed this person yesterday. Do you sometimes find it hard is it hard sometimes to have that conversation when there's urgency to the role, or do you make time to say, hold on, let's hit the brakes here. Let's really dig in and make sure we get this right before I start recruiting?
Oh, I love this question. So my mantra this year is hustle slowly. And I've really lived by this. And it's basically slowing down to get it right, to save time in the long run. So when you explain it to your clients and say, hey, this is going to help us get you the best person a lot sooner if we can just nail it this first time around, versus several interviews and course corrections and different paths that we may have to go down if you don't let us in. I can't say never. I rarely have anybody not get us in right away. And eventually we always get in there. Or honestly, if they're not invested in us and our success, it's probably not worth us to partner with them anyway.
Yeah.
So I think they actually genuinely appreciate it, the fact that we care and that we want these people to stay long-term. Because recruiting in general, sometimes we have damage control. They think we want this high turnover scenario all the time. We actually don't. We want our candidates to stay there a long time and be happy and companies to succeed. So I think they feel that partnership versus we're just another staffing vendor who's going to throw resumes at them all day long. It differentiates us from the competition.
So what you're saying is the first step in helping your customers find the right talent is actually having an in-depth conversation with the customer, exploring, the role, talking to those that are the top performers, what's working, what's not, getting aligned before you even hit the job boards or reach out to your book of clients to see if you have the right fit.
Yeah, if we get an electrical engineer for two companies that are side by side, I can promise you the fit is going to look totally different, right? That it's not, we can't always send the same candidates to every job. You've really got to align those.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
And it seems as though you can actually just avoid making a mistake by making sure that you are taking this time. Because previous place I worked at, turn and burn, cannibalistic, okay, people stealing candidates, clients, and it was all about volume. But I had success because I actually would go take the time and talk to people and get to know them and actually go get fits. I'm like, oh, hey, here's this, here's that. But not every staffing company is going to go teach that, where it's like, hey, you need to actually just be your genuine self and actually get to know both the client and the candidate to ensure the right fit, not just any fit, because they had really ridiculous KPIs where they're like, oh, no, you need to go submit about 50 resumes to this client right here. And it wasn't the right fit. It was just busy work to be busy.
And there's a lot of agencies that do that still to this day, and you have to meet the KPIs. And we transitioned internally. Actually, that was part of launching Spectrum, is we're very much a team. When we make a placement as a company, every single person on the team benefits. And I kind of grew up in the same space of people would steal clients and candidates. And it was so salesy and gross that the job satisfaction just wasn't there. But if you would get a solid candidate placed with your client that they just adore and they're making a great impact, that's what gets me up in the morning. That's what you want at these long-term matches. So I hear you. I've lived both spaces too, and I like where we're at.
Yeah,
A friend of
same.
mine,
It's the best. We're on the other
I,
side now.
a friend of mine owns an agency, and I want to get your take on this. He promises his clients, I'm going to get you 3 candidate submittals to you within 5 days that are an 80% match. Like that's his KPI. And I wonder if, that model is still like successful today, or is it really about, doesn't matter how many, candidates, 3, 4, or 2, but it's like, I want to submit the best candidate for you, for the first time, before we go into plan B or plan C. Maybe I'm looking at it the wrong way, but I think, I don't know if 3 is a good promise or not.
I align with your friend actually, and I think because I can't say promise, but we aim for the 3 to 5 day mark in terms of presenting candidates too. But that's part of getting on site and learning more about the position, because I'm not going to promise that to everyone if I know it's going to take me a week to find this electrical engineer. So it's really evaluating what you can deliver on. Our average today is 4 days to present talent, and usually we try for 3, but this, machinists, right? They're so dang hard to find a good machinist right now that if I get one, I'm sending one at a time, and I expect a very quick interview. But no, I think there has to be some hustle in the beginning. Otherwise, why are they using you? I know there's other reasons, but the time to present is definitely one of those that we can present a lot faster than they can to go search on their own.
So it's not a blanket promise you make. It's just a KPI that you hold yourself accountable to.
Yes. And if it's going to take beyond that, it's probably not in our wheelhouse. You know what I mean? Like, that's what you have to realize as well. I'm very guarded with our framework here at Spectrum, and we don't take on a lot of work that's outside of that because it's never served us well.
Makes sense.
That's why I called you to help me partner with those light industrial positions.
Thank you.
I don't have the people.
Awesome.
Yeah, that makes 100% sense. And just like, it's like, all right, we've got our goal, we got our KPI, but you would rather make sure that you have the right fit, the right individual to go with the right company, not just any person who meets that 80% qualification.
Yeah. And I think you have an obligation to your candidate pool too, right? So if we're talking to engineers all day long and manufacturing professionals, I want to be able to deliver on those, and where they're typically pretty niche as well. I can't deliver on them if I'm marketing to banking and finance companies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, I worked in the IT sector, and it's a lot of the time they'd be looking for a unicorn, and that whole 80%, that was not enough. They needed 100 plus another 20% plus company fit and culture fit. It's a lot, but you also have to get to know both the company and the candidate. So I like the fact that that's, and also engineer. I come from a family of engineers. Okay. We're stubborn. All right.
Oh, I love it. I love working with engineers. Stubborn's sometimes, definitely.
We're funny, but stubborn, and because a lot of it's mathematical. Okay, like I can call up my father, and he'll be like, "Oh, okay, great. Let me do this math." But he can go and break down something, and he'll be like, "Oh, it's like the human hair broken down. I don't know.
Did you say engineers are funny?
And that's going to be the yeah.
Like dad joke funny, or
they are so funny. The dry humor and dad jokes are seriously the best. And I also agree with you. There's passion towards the projects versus like that emotional pull on jobs sometimes. And so it makes the matches easier for me. Like, okay, you're passionate about this. Let's bring it together. So I love working with engineers.
Oh, that's fabulous. Okay, so I do have to move on to our next question. So right now, it's like, how are you leveraging data to refine your talent acquisition efforts at the moment? Because that's a huge thing going on. We are trying to leverage data. I know I'm doing it every day. I know Steven's doing it every day. What are things that you're doing that you are seeing working?
Yeah, great question, and very timely. We're actually going through and calculating our entire process and how many days each stage is taking. And I think you need to do this every 6 months or so, because everything is always evolving and always changing. And now with AI, what can we be doing more effectively and efficiently? So to answer your question, we calculate things like the time to present, right? How long is it taking us to get the right people to present to our hiring managers? How long is it taking them to interview? and then the entire process, right? How long is our place or our launch to fill rate? So those things we're reevaluating right now. I read on it was average of 28 days through Glassdoor, their last report. And we align with that pretty well. They were calculating all positions, which I think sometimes junior roles move a lot faster, but to have professional roles filled within 30 days, I feel like is a great number. So we're always targeting that or less. 20 to 30 days is ideal, but 20 days is asking a lot. They have to be really hungry and ready.
I think I read that same report. It was something around like 27 days that you have to hire a professional placement, and that candidate themselves are likely only in the market for 10 days, right?
Yes.
If you get them on the hook, it may take a month to hire, but you have 10 days from when they apply to get them on that hook and to put them through the process, or you're going to lose them within 10 days.
And we see it. And that's absolutely true. The good ones are gone so fast.
Yeah. Yeah. I was looking at some data, talking about, if you're using data-driven sourcing, it can boost your quality of hire by about 20%, and it'll cut your time to fill by about 30%, which is just crucial in a time like we're in today.
That's exactly it. And I think we could even look at the practices that companies are using. Sometimes they're casting such a wide net that, Stephen, you and I talked about your admin role that you posted and got a ridiculous response of candidates.
Yes. Over 100 within 12 hours. And I posted at like 5:30 p.m.
That's insane. That is absolutely insane. And so perhaps like we educate our clients, like hone it in, almost try to scare people away, right? You want to have it so spot on to your company, your culture and environment that it's not going to be for everybody. Because think how much time that takes alone to go through all of those. It's wild.
It is wild.
I wish I would get that on the engineering side. We don't get that.
All right. So essentially, you're recommending every maybe 6 months, companies should be revisiting and adjusting like their hiring profiles and their personas and their practices, right?
I would say 6 months to a year. If you have something that's working for you, you're probably good with a year. But if you've had any significant business changes at all, you'd have to look at it every 6 months because your messaging is going to change. And it doesn't matter what net you're casting, you're going to attract the wrong people if it doesn't align. So I think it's good to have a pulse on it, but changing it if it's working maybe every year.
Yeah, you think about just the risks of misalignment with how often the market's shifting. Looking at that's important because the market changes, right? Sometimes it's every year, sometimes it's changing monthly. Think back during COVID, late 2020 and early 2021, it was like the market was shifting. It felt daily in some cases.
Right, exactly. And you have to make sure you're still connecting with the people that are right for you. It's easy to connect with the general population, but how do you know if you're connecting to the people and that they're resonating with your job and your messaging? It's not speaking to them. They're not going to apply.
That's right.
And so that leads me to, because I work in marketing, and so I always think about branding and job postings. And so even though we're staffing agencies, right? Like you can't go and say who the client's name is, X, Y, and Z, but what would be one of the best ways where you could actually go implement like their culture, what are some of the practical ways, or what are some like messaging or just like value, or what would you recommend adding to that job posting to help attract the ideal candidate versus just any candidate?
Great question. So what part of our intake when we do go on site is learning more about their core values, their mission statement, their vision statement. Sometimes they don't have any of that put together, right? So you can help walk them through the process, though that's not ultimately what we want or what we do, but we definitely try to pull in the core values, and then we market and we focus on groups within those categories. So for example, like ours is connection. And so say that we have like there's maybe one of our clients has connection as well, and they're in the automotive industry. We'll create a campaign around connection and only marketing to automotive groups and people and magazines, and where those particular people are going to be hanging out versus casting that white net. And I think they have to have an awareness too. So if you go in there and they don't have the core values, I mean, that really does have to be step one, or we're going to be doing a lot of posting and praying.
Okay. So is there something that you would recommend to go and help companies stand out in a saturated job market without having a huge budget?
I think owning the small and medium companies actually have a significant advantage. And I'm really speaking to the Utah market here on this one, because we got penetrated with really large companies that came in and really soaked up a lot of the good talent from some of these small and medium-sized businesses.
Yes.
And now we're seeing the reverse. A lot of people are trying to leave because of all of the red tape. They're not finding that job satisfaction, and it's not always tied to compensation, which originally drew them to said opportunities. Now the small companies are having that authentic conversation with them and opportunities and what their day-to-day looks like. And you just make it impactful, right? So I think if companies can deliver the message of here's what success looks like with us, and here's the genuine impact that you'll make on the team and the company as a whole, people want to know they're contributing and they're showing up for a purpose. They want to leave at the end of the day feeling like they accomplished something too. And sometimes big companies can't always offer that, where small and middle-sized companies all day long, right? So I think we try to hone in on the impact specifically that this person will make and get them excited about that.
That's huge. I fit the bill on that one. I was part of my last couple of companies, part of these billion-dollar organizations. It was a lot of fun. It was rewarding, but it got to a point where you just felt like you're just another number, right? Just another person. And I reached out to Your Employment Solutions, a mid-sized firm here in Utah, and I knew the owners, talked to them about the role, and they really shared their vision, and they shared what they were looking for in a sales director, and some of the expectations there, and I just found myself attracted to building something from the ground up, smaller company. Doesn't have all the processes in place. Like, we get to kind of make it messy, figure it out, and have fun, but it's so much more rewarding. And it's hard to, maybe put something like that in a job ad, but you say, small company, we're looking for a team of builders. And for those people that are out there that are tired of the red tape, feeling like they're just a number, when they see that in the ad, that's gonna get them to stop and review it in detail and do some research on the company, and then likely apply.
Yeah, I love that. And on the marketing side too, I've seen a couple times where they'll use their existing employees to help create some content and marketing material. And I think when you can put the real human face in the team and give that visual to what day-to-day actually looks like in some of these small companies, it's really awesome. I just feel like it's a lot more, for the most part, more casual and just authentic, and you can let your guard down a little bit, and these people become your friends, and you don't dread going to work being that number. I've been there as well, and it's not fun.
No,
we've all been there. We've all been there. But the thing is, building that genuine, authentic, meaningful, like value added connection, even if it's just through a job posting or an ad campaign, social media. Just with the smaller companies, you're able to do that. Now, coming from a larger conglomerate, nope, everything had to be uniformed, this type of font. I completely get it. So anything else, Stephen, before we move on?
Go ahead.
Well, I'll give you a fun fact really quick. One of my previous employers actually mandated the color of lipstick that we had to wear. And this was in around 2000, and that was still a thing.
Oh my
lipstick gosh. People, I don't wear lipstick. That was not okay.
Wow.
I have so many thoughts, and we could derail.
I know.
To be continued.
Yeah.
Offline. Okay. We'll get back to that. Offline, like I said. But so, all right.
HR.
I now have great thoughts. Oh no, I have so many thoughts about it. Like especially coming from like New York. I saw all sorts of crazy stuff there. But all right, let's go and get back to this because obviously you're an expert, especially within talent acquisition. And so, okay, how, like, I know a lot of salespeople and a lot of operations people will really find some good value in this. Like, so how do you ensure that your hiring managers are in alignment with the talent acquisition goals and know how to sell the actual opportunity to a candidate?
Ooh.
I love this so much because what we are learning is usually they're not, right? Usually there are two ships in a night, and there's not a lot of dialogue that happens when you transition from the TA department or HR department to the actual hiring managers. So encouraging even a 15-minute collaborative session beforehand to make sure they're on the same page is huge, because I think you'll be surprised how often they are definitely not. The other issue that we have found is hiring managers aren't TA, right? They haven't been trained in interviewing. They don't always seek transitional skills or know what those even look like to know if they're going to be a good fit. So I think that the two teams really need to focus on coming together a lot more, and it has to be intentional and a best practice, especially, from the TA department. You want these people to get hired, right? You work hard to bring them in the door. Help set your hiring manager up for success. So a quick 15-minute conversation to a realign, I think, is huge. And you get on the same page, which will, convince the candidate that you have your ducks in a row, is the G-rated way of saying that.
Right. That goes back to really getting to know like the client, the culture, actually going on site, learning who they are, but also making sure that you are like, what was it you said? Hustle slowly. Okay.
Hustle
Taking that
slowly.
time. Yep. I wrote that down. I'm like,
Oh,
I'm going to
good.
have to get that like up on my wall, remember it. But so just that whole hustle slowly, even though there is a rush to hire, but it's like, let me talk to you, take that time, really get to know and make sure like the candidate's having a really good experience as well. And we're not just throwing a whole bunch of people and the hiring manager's like, okay, do I have to deal with you again? Like, no,
Right.
you know what I mean? We've been there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
I
think
love
you have
that.
to recognize that hiring managers aren't born with these skills. So opening our, access to us and what we do know after so many decades, just being a service they can utilize, like, hey, help me through this. Like, how can I come across as a very competent hiring manager and not do anything illegal? And, they usually haven't been trained properly. So to be that professional expert for them, or a sounding board, a safe space, they may be embarrassed to tell their HR department that, or TA department that. So if you can help coach them, I think it goes a long way too. Or if you offer that initial coaching without them approaching you, if you're just getting the gut check of like, oh, he or she doesn't know what they're doing, let us help you. A lot of times we've actually done the first or second round interviews with them to help walk them through the stages to see like, this is how it's done and what it can look like. And their minds are blown, and they didn't have to like sell themselves short or look stupid or anything like that. So I think it's definitely a partnership when you evolve from that vendor relationship to the more collaborative situation.
Yeah, I couldn't agree
Stephen,
more.
I
I
hope you
think
took note.
coaching, I'm taking notes. Yeah, I agree with you, Tina. You have to coach these TA teams on being more authentic, having a human interaction, being able to sell the opportunity in a way that's genuine, authentic, let them tell their story of how they started at the company, really, have the candidate tell, share some of their interests, just connect on some shared interests.
Yeah, you touched on my favorite point. We always ask the hiring managers and TA, well, what keeps you here? Why are you with this company? And if they hesitate for too long, that's a whole other conversation.
Red flag.
But candidates are going to ask that question of like, why are you sitting at that desk? Why have you been here for 10 years? So having them with some tools in their back pocket that they can answer those type of questions are also really great.
Well, and you have to remind our customers that, whether you hire this candidate or not, like that experience they have, that interaction with you and anyone else in your company, like they can become raving fans of your company, even if they don't get the job, or they become some of the biggest detractors, right? And can leave some negative reviews on social, which is a pretty common thing to do now. And so you're just as much on the spotlight as the candidate is.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, I've got another question for you. Unless anything else, Tina?
Go ahead.
I'm ready.
Okay. All right. So, with everything that we're talking about, especially within the candidate experience, while we're trying to go through the whole lines of communication, they're trying to interview, what has been either the biggest like impact on attracting or actually repelling top talent when it comes to that whole entire process?
It always boils down to communication, authentic communication. So we all use AI for administrative tasks, right? Some scheduling, different things. But I think when it comes to the actual human element, people need to get back on the phone. And that's been very impactful, is just having the high touch communication. But perhaps even more importantly is a very clear expectation set for candidates. So here's the interview cadence. You're going to hear from us this week, and then we'll do an on-site next week. And just setting some expectations and following through on those the bar is pretty low right now. If you do that alone, you're going to set yourself up for success in this environment, which is awful. But communicate with your candidates and do what you say you're going to do, and you'll be floored at how far that gets you. And they're not going to go rant and say negative things, even if they don't get the job. But Stephen's totally right. If you ghost people, it's very easy to vent on job boards, and it jeopardizes relationships all over the place. So if they can focus on their cadence and driving it forward, they'll set themselves apart as a hiring manager.
That's fabulous. And I got to tell you, I've seen those reviews. I've seen those comments. They're not friendly.
It's very easy when you don't have to look anyone in the eye to leave a negative comment, right?
That's right. Well, and it's just that cadence is really important, because you're setting the expectation and timeline. So, we all have lives, so we need to plan around, the schedule for interviews and follow up. But also you have to look at the process itself to hire somebody on. If the process is too complex, right, you've got to fill out 45 minutes of an application, then you've got to go take 5 different assessments. Like, I was reading some data that shows, if you're doing like 5 things or more, you're going to have a 60% drop off, where candidates are just like, I'm done. This is too much. And so, like, you've got the first, intake call, then, they have the application, they have your first intake call, and you're getting aligned, seeing if they're a great fit. And then you're submitting them, or maybe having a formal interview, and then submitting them for an interview with the client. So you're already like 3 or 4 steps in, and now, got to take this assessment. Now I've got to go do a second interview, a third, a fourth. It can get messy fast, and you can have a high drop off. Yeah.
And it's pretty antiquated. And I think candidates are starting to really recognize that, and they don't want to work with companies whose processes are still, outdated.
Yeah.
And another thing too, to add to that, one of my favorite authors, Brene Brown, she always says clear as kind. So we always try to remember that, clear as kind. So, okay, candidates, we always tell them, we submitted 5 people for this position out of the gate. They've narrowed it down to 3 people for on-sites. And now 2 of you are, being invited back for seconds. So we always try to share just what are their odds? If you're a candidate looking for work, you're going to want to know where to invest your time, and do I stand a chance? So I think if hiring managers for companies could even do the same thing, clear as kind, give them a pulse on their chances. And I think you'll find extreme engagement too from candidates as the funnel starts to close, right?
Yeah.
All right. So the play-by-play on this, number 1, communication, human communication, right? Okay. And then also make sure that you are setting up the actual expectations and the actual cadence of what the candidate should be able to expect moving forward. And on top of that, the last piece, clear as kind. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, that's perfect. And you can
That's our playbook.
plans always change, right? So if they set this expectation and it goes wrong, you're going to have the respect and understanding and trust from your potential candidates to say like, hey, we have to adapt. So and so went out of town this week. It's going to be delayed a week. They're going to believe you, right? Because you've been in constant communication. So nothing goes perfectly, at least rarely, right? But
Right.
you still have that foundational trust that's going to be required for any type of successful long-term relationship.
Very true.
No, I absolutely love that. Now, I do have a couple of other questions, although we are coming up short on time, so we'll breeze through this. All right. So Stephen brought up red flags and lessons. Okay. So red flags. Have you ever hired someone that seemed like they were the right fit? They were going to fit culturally, but ultimately they weren't. And what did you learn in that experience?
That's
Oh,
never happened to you, right?
never. No, I actually have to laugh at that. So after 24 years in this industry, if I haven't made the mistake on my own, I've seen it. And I've made plenty of mistakes. So absolutely, you can put them through 2, 3, and 4 interviews sometimes, which I never do 4 anymore. But you can't always make 100% the right hiring decisions all the time. It's just not obtainable. But what you do learn is ultimately what's important to you. So I got over the must-have experience in XYZ really quickly and started focusing more on personality and drive and culture for us internally. I will train somebody new that's hungry and meets our core values all day long versus having that experience. So that was always a good lesson learned. And something over the last few years that I've realized too is just because you hire the perfect person 5 years ago, they may or may not evolve with you during this journey. It's a relationship. So they may outgrow you, you may outgrow them. And just having the guts to know when to end it for both parties' sake has been powerful that way as well.
Yeah, our industry has a stigma, right? That there's some data that shows that first year turnover with agencies are 30% higher than most of our clients, and so it's because there's a mismatch in expectations, which is really helpful for this conversation today. Because you have that maybe that lack of trust initially with customers, and so sharing the story that you just shared now is beautiful to be able to share your learnings, your findings of when you thought you had it right and you got it wrong. And it builds a little bit more confidence in you as getting them the right candidate. Is you learn from those mismatches and you're going to get them the right person.
Yeah, and it humanizes everybody involved, that it's okay to make some mistakes sometimes, and that's how we learn and grow.
That's right. Yeah.
I love that. And also I remember like back in my previous life in hospitality, I would be like just opening up and doing something, and then I would hear someone interviewing, and I'd be like, I want them for this position. They're like, they don't have any experience. It's like, but I cannot teach personality or work ethic.
Yeah.
I can't. I can teach them so many other things. So I love that perspective. I love that approach, and just like getting to know people. But if they're not growing with you, then you have to reevaluate. So we're only human.
If it's okay with you, Genevieve, I want to ask a couple questions before we wrap it up, because I know we're coming up on time.
Go for
I want
it.
to talk about the future of talent attraction. We've got Gen Z right now that by 2030, so 5 years from now, Gen Z will make up 30% of the workforce, if they all decide to stay in the workforce. And so I want to know, have you seen any shifts in the landscape when you're trying to attract talent, with this emerging generation, Gen Z, because a lot of them are in their 20s now. Have you seen much of the landscape change with this new generation?
Yes, and I think it's actually beautiful. They are really demanding that flexible work-life balance schedule. And companies that didn't think they were able to do that before are figuring out ways to do it and retaining their people longer. I don't know that we're going to see anything mind-blowing unique that we haven't heard of over the last couple of years, but I do believe that companies who are slower to transition and acclimate into some of these new requirements from Gen Zers are making the shift, and it's turning that naval ship. It's going to take some of them a really long time, but that we're getting there. And also the US compared to other countries, right? We work like dogs. So trying to find that balance for people and employees is also starting to be really significant. And we're seeing a lot of positivity from that as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. Utah had a population, growth from 2010 to 2020. The population grew in Utah by about 17.4% or 18%. And, people think looking at that and going, oh, great. Like we've got the talent, like we've got the jobs that can be filled. But in all reality, just because you have population growth doesn't mean you're going to be able to fill these open roles. You have the baby boomers that 80% of the workforce exits in 2020 were baby boomers that were retiring. And every day, 10,000 baby boomers reach the age of retirement. So today we had 10,000 that hit the age of retirement, and tomorrow we'll have another 10,000. And so the workforce of today is the millennial, the kids and the grandkids of the baby boomers. And that's your millennials, that's your Gen Z, even Gen X. The older Gen Xers, they're reaching retirement age over the next few years. And so, if you're not dealing with that shifting landscape with Gen Z, you're going to be forced to. So it's best to just get ahead of it now and start learning how to be more flexible. Gen Z, they want culture. They want to make sure your company is doing great things, making a difference in their communities and across the country. And again, that flexibility, there's so many different ways you can interpret that flexibility. And you got to learn to adapt. And that's hard. To your point, companies are struggling with that.
It is. And the ones that are willing to just using Gen Zers as the example, let them in, they're getting a lot of benefits when the owners will sometimes let go of control. Gen Zers are bringing technology and new avenues and new ways of thinking to a business that perhaps was a little stuck in the rut before. So being open-minded, you can find a culture match, even though there's a large age gap and difference, you still have that same mindset and that same drive. So if you can adapt to I love that word, and consider Gen Zers for some of these roles, it may not look like you believe it has to look out of the gate, but open the dialogue and see if you can find that happy medium. I think a lot of companies would be surprised on how quickly they could advance their business and their teams.
Yeah, that's right. All right. So Genevieve, let's wrap it up with, we got one more question for you, Tina, and then we might do a rapid round. If you could give one piece of advice to a company struggling to find the right people, what would it be?
Hustle slowly.
Oh,
That's kind of the theme. I would say slow it down, review your messaging. You may think you're attracting the right people, but they're not connecting with what you're putting out there. So review your messaging, make sure your mission statements in line with your core values. They're starting to look for this information as part of their job exploration. So if the more available you can make it on your website, job descriptions, whatever that looks like for you, and keeping it consistent will double down on your success rate.
Love it.
I knew you were going to say hustle slowly. I knew it.
So funny. I love that. We're going to steal that one. All right. So just to summarize the playbook here with Tina, you've been a great guest. So we need to find the right skill set for the job, but more importantly, make sure it's a cultural fit. They have the right mindset. They can elevate the culture, bring that energy, have your in-depth conversations, have that alignment meeting with them prior to going out and posting the jobs and recruiting the candidates. Make sure we're fully aligned from day one. That hustle slowly. I know we needed that job filled yesterday, but let's get it right so we don't have to fill it again in 2 months. Have KPIs for your team, some benchmarks that you can hold yourself and your team accountable, whether that's having 3 placements in 5 days or 1 really good placement in 3 days. Whatever those KPIs are, measure them, benchmark them, hold yourself accountable, leverage the data that's going on in the industry, and that shifts often. It takes about 30 days to hire a candidate, but you have 10 days where a candidate's actually in the market. So you've got to get their attention, get them on the hook, get them through the process so you don't lose them to a competitor. When it comes to your job descriptions, speak their language, really showcase, what this company is about, and you're going to attract the ideal candidates if you can speak their language to build that connection. AI is important, but don't miss that human connection. Set expectations through the entire process with your candidate so they know what to expect. Be clear. Clear is kind, is what you've mentioned. I love that. And when it comes to the shifting landscape, be flexible and hustle slowly. Did I miss anything?
No, well done.
All right. Okay, Tina, I know I recently discovered you're a big reader and you have a book club, which I love. I want to know what book you're reading now or about to start, and tell me, one of your all-time favorite books that's really helped you in your career.
Yeah, good question. The Client Experience is a book that we really actually benefited from. And my book club consists of professional level people, typically within the manufacturing space, that are there for professional development reasons. So there's a very specific purpose for the book club. But viewing our processes from our clients' eyes forced us to change some things. And it was just really impactful. And I love books that make you change things and actually do something about it. So that was a great book. And I'm not remembering the author's name, but I'll get it to you. Then there's a series called the Go Giver series that I always really, really love. And there's a couple different ones for business or marriage or relationships, but it just really talks about the human connection and relationships. And the more you give, the more you get, and just having that satisfaction with relationships and recognizing that we're all on this journey and how to make it meaningful. So the Go Giver would be the one I recommend the most.
I think you recommended that series to me in the past. I need to go and add that to my Amazon cart.
You really do. And then we need to talk about it for hours.
Genevieve, you want to hit Tina with one last question? Rapid question.
What's your favorite plant that you have? Sorry, we're both gardeners. Okay. I see your background. You see mine. You have a favorite.
So, well, I don't know the proper name if it's still accurate, but the Wandering Jew, I know there's a couple names for that one. And it's like the purple, I'm looking at it right now, where it's a love-hate thing. I brought it from Florida on one of our trips. And so I'm just kind of keep it alive in Utah is the current battle. And apparently I can, but she's so pretty and I love the colors. And so I'm going to go with that answer today. Wandering Jew.
I have one that's in the other room. That one's fickle. I've had to move it in multiple places.
Mine's fickle too. So if you find something that works, please share any pro tips.
I can absolutely do that. If I tell you a plant's fickle, that means I've actually struggled with it.
Sounds like a pet.
They are. Pets are the new children, and plants are the new pets.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right. For those that are interested in reaching out to, thank you. Tina, for those that want to find you, spectrumsolutions.com, as well as on LinkedIn. So just LinkedIn/Tina Hazlett, HAZLETT. Please connect with her. She posts so much content every week, a lot of great stuff. And if you're looking for help in your professional placement, getting your positions filled in the light industrial and manufacturing space when it comes to professional roles, she's your gal. I send her business. She takes care of them. And so what a treat it's been. You've really helped us, today get the playbook on how we can equip our clients to really to get the best candidates before anybody else and give them the right strategy to do so. So thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity and working with me, and G Money. It's so great to meet you.
No, thank you. We really appreciate having you on and for all of your insights.
It's been great.
All right. Well, we'll see you next Friday. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Six months ago, I get a call from Steve Farrell, who wants to talk about partnering with Yes for our labor needs. It would
change your approach to staffing.
I told him I've already used multiple agencies and have had headaches with each one. So my approach to staffing is just fine.
With multiple agencies, we thought we had our staffing needs covered. Hey, the agency employees didn't show up, so we're short on staff again. I'm sorry.
Bupkis. Curses. Fetch.
Hey, an agency sent an employee.
Do you have production experience?
I've produced YouTube videos. I'm hungry. When's my first break?
This is not sustainable. If you want happy customers and a healthy business, something's gotta change. So yes, we tried yes.